today. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliance to get you on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey.
Well, hallelujah. I'm back in the saddle again. Nice to have you all here on the program. Monday, the 18th day of August, year of our Lord 2025. Pardon for the late start here. We had a technical difficulty, like 4 or 5 of them is going on this morning. That's what happens, and sometimes you just can't get the horse up and out of the stable into the pasture onto the racetrack as quickly as you want to. But we got it all fixed up today. Not on the Instagram, though. We're not on the IG this morning. So if you're one of the hipsters, usually watch on Instagram, I always tell you, always have a backup plan. We had a problem with a Facebook connection. Producer Chad was having it. I wasn't. And then we tried to log in, and Facebook gave us an issue. So there's all sorts of issues this morning. But that's okay. Producer Chad and I are trained professionals, and we are here and capable of handling all the obstacles that come our way. Unless they're too big, then we just quit and give up and go drink. So other than that, it's fine. Nice to have you here on the program. I hope you missed us. I was gone Thursday and Friday, taking care of some family business, if you can say that. And producer Chad was also just enjoying not having to put up with me for a couple of days. So that was, and he was doing a charity golf tournament. He's a big time spender like that. He goes to charity golf events. He's like a shark, like a whale. Everybody wants in producer Chad's pocket. You know, it pays big money to work here at the House of Lakey Streamcast. It's huge. It's big dollars. it's a lot of. Ooh, I'm telling you. That's why Delilah's still here. She hates me, but I'm telling you, she. She hates me most days, but she gets paid very well to do what she does. All right, good to have all of you here. Don't forget, check in if you forgot the rules of the program. I'm Jimmy Lakey, unleashed from the confines of corporate radio. And here we are together and doing our own little streamcast, podcast. Thousands of earballs will hear what you're hearing right now live. They will hear thousands of it. By the end of the day, end of the week, thousands of people will hear this show on the stream, on the podcast versions as well. So anyway, wherever you are participating, love to have you. Don't forget, drop your comments. People are already starting to check in from around the fruited plain. Rich just said, good morning. 54 years around the sun. It's a great day. Rich, happy birthday to you. If you'll give an address, producer Chad will come jump out of a cake in his, well, I'll let you decide what he's going to wear. But yeah, send him your address and he'll be there. Dennis says, buenos dias, Jimmy. That reminds me, you know who I saw over the weekend? First time I've seen him in probably many years, was Cesar. Cesar sometimes hops into the chat room here, and Cesar had come up in the northern area of Colorado for a cigar festival. Anybody that's a cigar festival guy or a cigar guy in Colorado, or really America, knows one of the largest festivals called the Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest. And so Cesar had left his beloved casa in the Colorado Springs area, and he came up for the weekend and stayed in the Denver Boulder area so he could be at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest. And so he and I made connection over the weekend. First time I'd seen Cesar in a long time. The rumor was we took a photo together, arm around him. I don't know. I don't know if it was on my phone or producer Chad's phone. I don't remember. But anyway, Cesar is the guy that originally called me Jaime Lagos. He's the guy that said Jaime Lagos, and he said that's my name. So he's one of those guys that speaks fluent Mexican, fluent Spanish, and he can roll his R's and all that stuff. He's fancy like that, roll his R's. So anyway, Cesar, if you're out there in the Twitterverse or the YouTube verse or the Facebook verse, glad to see you this weekend, and a pleasure to have a cigar or 4 or 5 with you, and tequila. No, he was drinking the whiskey. I was not. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. All right, we didn't get to talk about this on the program because obviously I was out Thursday and Friday. But Friday, and what would have been the time that the show ended, Vladimir Putin showed up in Alaska. And I want to get your thoughts on this whole Vladimir Zelinsky. That's Volodymyr Zelinsky and Vladimir Putin. It was quite a show, wasn't it? It was quite a show. What stood out to you? This is a kind of a sub-question. I have a real question of the day. But the sub-question is, what stood out to you at that meeting? I've heard so many people in the aftermath of that meeting say that the Donald Trump showmanship, it was pretty amazing. The Donald Trump showmanship, making him walk by the fighter jets, onto the platform, surprising him with the B-52 flyover. That was interesting. I wondered what Donald Trump said as he tapped him and pointed. I wonder if he said, hey, he's going to Moscow next. I don't know what he said, but it was definitely a power play and good for Donald Trump. And I thought that was good. It's interesting watching some of the narrative over the weekend of the coverage of that. The Democrats say it was a failure. This is worse than Afghanistan pullout. There's not a damn thing that I watched on that show on Friday in the aftermath of it that made me think that was a failure. It seemed like I never expected. You got a war that's been going on for 3 years. You got a lot of things going on, and I didn't necessarily expect it. I thought there's going to be a follow-up. I didn't expect that Putin was going to walk out carrying a white flag with a pride flag and say, look, I'm a Democrat. I surrender and I have a pride flag. I didn't expect that at all. They're meeting again today, but the media is so hell-bent, and Trump derangement syndrome is so real that all they can say, well, look at us, a failure. He didn't walk out with a deal. Well, it's he didn't walk out. Oh, there's Cesar commenting in the room out there. Great to see you too, my friend. It's a pleasure, sir. My pleasure. Jaime Lagos in the house. And yeah, he speaks real Spanish, real Mexican Spanish, because he rolls his R's. Like he says, relleno, chile relleno, stuff like that. Fancy. It's dirty talk. All right. So anyway, I thought it was good. Zelinsky is so that was Friday. President Trump got in the Air Force One, picked up the phone, and called a bunch of Europeans and called Zelinsky and said, "You boys get your butts to the White House now." So they all booked a last-minute ticket on Southwest Airlines or Spirit or wherever they fly, and they have all decided to come to the White House today. The head of the European Union is going to be the head of NATO. Macron's going to be there from France. There's a whole cast of characters are going to show up there, and they're going to basically, matter of fact, Marco Rubio did an interview over the weekend in which the lady said, so everybody's going to bring Zelinsky to town and tell him to accept a bad deal. And I like Marco Rubio. He said, stop it, you bimbo, you little bitty. No, he didn't say that, but he was thinking that. That's what he's thinking. He said, that's untrue. He says, why would we want Zelinsky to take a bad deal? We're going to talk with Zelinsky about what offers we have on the table, and we're going to figure it out as an ally of his. But stop the bat crap crazy journalistic narrative that you and your bat crap crazy channel have, you little bitty. And that, again, he didn't say the bitty, but he was thinking the bitty. That's what he was doing. All right, so give me your thoughts on the summit that happened on Friday. I thought the Air Force flyover, the B-52 flyover was the B-2 flyover was pretty amazing. Making Putin walk by American military strength was pretty amazing. And even when Putin said the next meeting should be in Moscow. So why? That's a success. You got Putin wanting to talk. Do you realize Joe Biden only crapped his pants? He never picked up the phone the last several years of his administration and even tried to talk to Vladimir Putin. Joe Biden was a crappy pants fool, and yet the media is out there trying to make it sound like it was a failure. Just getting Putin to show up in Anchorage, Alaska was a pretty big success, and Putin's prescribing a next meeting. He said it should be in Moscow. Donald Trump said, well, that may cause some problems. And Trump's going, listen, I ain't in this fight. I'm trying to save lives. I'm trying to keep people from dying. I don't need to go to your Moscow haven to mediate a meeting between you and Zelinsky. You guys can come to my house. We'll meet in Alaska. We'll meet in somewhere else. But I set the rules here, buddy. I set the rules, old Vladimir. So anyway, glad to have you here. If you watched the Marco Rubio interview, setting the reporter at straight, it was a fantastic, but it just shows the narrative that they immediately took that message or that meeting the other night and said, it was a Donald Trump failure. I didn't see failure in it at all. So strength. And today, even while we're meeting, Zelensky's planning to arrive at the White House, and we shall see exactly what happens next. All right, we'll talk more about that. I'm sure that's going to be a topic all week long. Zelensky going to visit the White House. A lot of European leaders are going to visit the White House today as well. I do have a question of the day. We got a lot of guests on the program, including our buddy Michael Letts is in the green room. He's going to stop up here in just a moment. Michael, we put out fresh donuts in the green room, and yeah, orange juice, I think. So enjoy. We'll get to you in just a second. So Michael Letts is going to be in the green room. And but here's a question of the day. Again, technical difficulties started a little bit late today, but we'll get all online. And again, by the end of the day, thousands of earballs will hear this show, and they'll hear it on the podcast platforms as soon as we're done the live stream on all the platforms. It's now populating on Twitter. We're watching the People are reposting it. Always repost to Facebook, 4 Facebook feeds, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, etc. But go to Apple Podcasts, go to the iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify. All those platforms will cover the, you can listen to it later on the program. All right, here's your real question of the day. This is it. Producer Chad has a couple of sons, and one of his sons is of the age that he got called to jury duty, his first time at jury duty. And his son was asking the typical questions you would ask. What do I wear to jury duty? Is there anything I should know, Dad, about jury duty? I got to go to jury duty. Well, jury duty is exciting. I actually don't mind jury duty. It just used to get called at the worst times. And because I've told people for years, they'll say, Mr. Lakey, what's your profession? When you say radio talk show host, in other words, you formulate opinions and you judge things on a fly just so you can have something to talk about, that is a sure way to get out the door. That is a positively a great way to get kicked out of the door. I did see that my sheriff in Weld County, Colorado, Sheriff Steve Reams, one of the great sheriffs of America, he got called to jury duty in Weld County, where I happen to live as well. And they said that when he walked into jury duty, reporting for jury duty, they looked and said, "What are you doing here?" And he says, "Got a summons." And they said, "Get out of here." And they kicked him out because, it's probably not good that the sheriff is going to be jury in the place where he probably arrested the cat in the first place. So anyway, jury duty is exciting. Producer Chad was helping his son. Your son, you wear what you want. You're going to have people that look homeless. You're going to have people that wear suits. You're going to have people dressed up. And so he's explaining the ways of jury duty and how to step into jury duty. And his son was thinking, how do I get out of it? First of all, how many people, when you get the notice, said, all right, I got to get out of this? Is there anybody out there? And I may be that one weird person that says, I hope I get picked today. I may be that guy, the guy that hopes I get picked, and therefore they never pick me. But how many of you have ever used a funny or crazy excuse to get out of jury duty? You have the typical, you don't want to be too dangerous with this, but I believe in the death penalty. I don't like people of color. You say things. Has anybody ever used a real excuse to get out of jury duty? And if so, what was your excuse to do so? I'd like to hear your excuses on getting out of jury duty. And how many of the rest of you are like me, kind of geeky, that if you get the jury summon, you're like, okay, that doesn't interfere with vacation, trips to Africa. Yeah, I want to get picked, but they never pick me because all you got to do is say you're a broadcaster or a talk show guy. They'd probably let the dope smoking FMers do that at the FM radio. They'd probably let the drunk country music guys have a country music DJ. Well, by God, then you're pretty good. You tell them you're a radio talk show host, and that's what I've been able to tell them for years. They show right after Steve Reams, the sheriff, gets kicked out of jury duty, I'm out. They get rid of me. Now, the first time I ever got picked, when I was around the age of probably a little older than producer Chadson, I was in my I was probably 20. I just finished college. Is what happened. I got picked. I was 20. 21, 22. I got picked to jury duty, and we sat through a 4-day trial about this guy stealing a car, and he had pled not guilty. And then just as they were going to go to the defense, we had to hear all the prosecution. We walked in the next day, the defense was going to start, and the judge says, we have reached a plea deal, and he's not going to offer defense because he's pled guilty, whatever. That ticked me off. I'm like, if you're going to take the freaking plea deal, would you take it early? Because I was ready to go and have a debate in the jury room. And it seemed obvious the guy was guilty, but nevertheless, tell me exactly what it is that you use or say to get out of jury duty. If you're not like me, if you're like me, you're like, please pick me. You're like a fat kid on a kickball team, trying to get picked for jury duty. I try. That's what I try to do. I'm like a fat kid trying my best to get picked, and they never pick me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, glad to have you here. Jeff says, is he donating blood while he waits? Oh, because I told Michael Letts there's probably orange juice in the green room. I don't know. You know what we have to put in the green room? You've heard the Jimmy Lakey Mass Choir that sings every morning when we start the show. Well, the Jimmy Lakey Mass Choir, some of those ladies like Pop-Tarts, and we have a lot of Pop-Tarts in there, and we also have talcum powder in the green room. And you say, Jimmy, why do you have talcum powder? Why do you have some powder in the green room? I said, because when those women walk on the stage to sing, there's friction, and it makes noise, and you got to kind of We don't want sparks flying to the green room. So yeah, talcum powder in the green room, because some of those ladies got some rubbing going on as they walk. So anyway, glad to have all of you here. No, he's not donating blood. I'm just offering fresh squeezed orange juice, Jeff. Thank you for your cynicism. Ladies and gentlemen, law enforcement extraordinaire Officer Michael Letts is in the green room. I don't think he's donated any blood unless his wife hit him with that pan this morning in the face. Good
morning. Yep. Good morning, Jimmy. Always a privilege to be with you. I'm going to take you with me next time to jury duty. We're going to introduce ourselves as the Blues Brothers. And
I think we should. I want to get picked. They never picked me anymore. I got picked when I was 23 and could barely even judge good beer back then. And now they won't let me judge something. They pick the 23-year-old. They won't pick me. It's sad.
I feel your pain, Jimmy. Every time that they ask me, they see the badge and then they decline the offer, and I say, that's discrimination if you ask me. But
I'm telling you, I feel discriminated against. I'm going to file a civil rights case and see where I can get with Pam Bondi. Speaking of Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is, I remember right before the election, my listeners or viewers will probably remember this. You had this wall material for the big, beautiful wall that was going to be built. And Biden, not only was he pardoning everybody that had snorted cocaine and done bad things in the White House or Epstein Island, he was pardoning everybody, but he was also selling for pennies on the dollar all this equipment, all this gear, all this hardware that could have built the fence to keep America safe again, or safer. And America got it back under Trump. He went and said, no, we're not selling that. But Pam Bondi is filing legal action against the company that sold the border wall material. We've kind of forgot about the border wall material. Pam Bondi hasn't forgotten.
Oh, you're exactly right, Jimmy. Here's how the procedure works. When we have excess property, GSA or DRMO puts it up for auction to the highest bidder. In this particular case, it didn't work. They picked who was going to have the opportunity to bid on it, because now we understand that there are financial kickbacks given back into the administration. So they picked the company and said, here, we'll let you have it for pennies on the dollar. And then when you mark it up to dimes on the dollar, we're going to get some of the return. And they're in trouble now.
You remember Texas tried to buy that wall stuff, and they were refused because the previous administration chose someone else because there was a little bit of a quid pro quo, a little bit of greasing palms, it sounds like, and that's why state of Texas. It's amazing that we forget about these things. That was a big news story for a few days. But Pam Bondi, she finally gets to it in August. They took office in January. This was probably happening in October, November, December of last year. When you're just now getting to this one, Pam Bondi's got to have a huge checklist of things that she's just like, I hadn't forgot about it. We're all thinking, have you forgotten about this? And she's like, listen, I still remember the fence stuff.
That's a very big credit to her account, because here's what they did. When they first notified the company, they knew what they had done. So they quickly offered, we'll sell it back for nickels on the dollar to the U.S. government, and then let it go back out through the process again. Pam wasn't interested. You paid pennies for the dollar, and you broke the law. No deal.
Well, the voice of Michael Letts, if you're listening later on in the day, my friends, you need to hear Michael Letts. We'll tell you about his website here in just a moment, but that's Michael Letts, investusa.org, investusa.org. Michael, I was watching this flyover. I want to get your commentary over Putin's head, the showmanship of Donald Trump flying a B-2 over Vladimir Putin as he arrived at his summit. Give me your thoughts as you watch that whole thing. I do have a story here that talks about enforcement of the Coast Guard, very formidable presence in Alaska, because a lot of folks didn't realize it's just a couple of minutes flight on an airplane for Vladimir Putin to cross from Alaskan or United States airspace into Russia. It's not the old Saturday Night Live skit, I can see Russia from my front porch, but hop, skip, and a jump, and boom, we could get that. That's a pretty easy access for the threats to enter into America. The Coast Guard stepping it up, and it was on full display, I guess, this past week, because all of Alaska had to be on high alert.
Oh, that's correct, Jimmy. You are exactly right. It really is only a skip and a jump between Alaska and and Russia. Just right to the Bering Sea. And so, Putin has been having some fun. And the reason why he's having some fun in the past was he was moving forward to a ceasefire settlement we were moving forward to a ceasefire and then a peace talks. But there's been a conflict, not within the administration, but within Congress. Congress has not exactly been doing what the American people wanted. The majority of the American people said, "Quit spending my money over there. I need it over here." And when Congress kept sending it over there, and then you had the administration saying, "Hey, we want to broker ceasefire and a peace agreement," and Putin saying, "Yeah, I believe you all right, because every time you say that, they send more money over here to try to increase ordinances." So he had a little bit of tough talk for the president. So the president's having fun picking back at him. B-2 flyover with all the F-35s, all the attack helicopters out there. We put on crated display along with the Coast Guard. He got the message loud and clear. For him, fortunately, I don't think that message was going to be quite as necessary as we thought, because, Zelinsky, we have been saying for quite some time, Jimmy, that out of all the money that went over there and the ordinances, they were selling the ordinances on the black market. And the money that was going over, they were pocketing or sending it back to the NGOs here in the United States, who were they giving it to members of Congress who sit on their boards. We've known that to be a fact for quite some time. Zelinsky had said he had the list. Of course, we've already got it. He doesn't know that. But we had said that we were going to make sure that we audited the books. Zelinsky said, "Sure, I'm happy to support you," thinking he was going to get more financial aid when we didn't do that. About 3 days before he was to meet with, he was supposed to be scheduled in the initial meeting with Putin. And quite frankly, he said, "Nah, on second thought, I'm not going to participate in the audits. I'm not going to cooperate at all." So we said, "Fine, you're not invited to to Alaska anymore, A. And B, we had taken a hardline stance that there could be no exchange of property, that anything that Russia had gained, they were going to have to give it all back. Now we're going to just take a look and see. We're going to listen to see what Putin has to say." And you saw the results. We've had some very positive little movements forward, coming very close to bringing this thing to closure. But Zelensky's out in the cold, so now he's crying. He's over here this morning, and we'll see how far his little temper tantrums get.
I want to know if Zelinsky is going to actually wear a suit this time, or if he went to Lululemon again and bought a tracksuit. I'm not sure. I'm hoping he wears a suit this time. Actually,
here's what he's got. He purchased some shoes that are 2.5 inches in height insoles, so he's going to be able to look a little taller. He's got him a black sports jacket with black pants. So I wouldn't go the full length of the suit, but he's trying to spruce up a little bit, Jimmy. I don't think it's going to make any difference. When you thumb your nose at the United States and you take our money, we're not talking about millions or billions. We're talking about trillions of dollars, Jimmy. They've stolen from us.
I'm kind of thinking Zelinsky is going to show up at the White House and he's going to be happy to see Daddy Trump. But if he sees J.D. Vance, he's going to, "Oh, God, don't keep him away from me." If he sees J.D. Zelinsky maybe wearing black pants for a reason. They hide the stains.
Yeah, I tend to think so. It'll be interesting to see in the next day. He's going to be meeting. We start at 1:30 this afternoon, as I recall. And we'll see if he has any indications to help show where that money went, to help track it back down. And if he does not, he probably wasted some airline fuel for nothing.
Yeah. Vladimir Putin, he probably could have worn those 2-inch heels, because I didn't realize the guy was such a wee little man. He was standing next to Donald Trump. Donald Trump looked like Andre the Giant walking next to Vladimir Putin. That's gotta make Vladimir not feel good. All right, a couple of law enforcement stories I want to get your comment. Michael Letts, investusa.org, is my guest. Mike, we have the Michael, we have the story of what they call the militarization of the takeover of Washington, D.C. But you have law enforcement officers, National Guard there. The FBI have been deployed and tried to clear homelessness out of Washington, D.C. How dangerous is this assignment? I mean, obviously, these guys have guns, they have armored vehicles, but this is law enforcement on the front line cleaning up America that Joe Biden left very, very dirty. Talk about the assignment of all of these law enforcement agencies and military agencies showing up in Washington, D.C. last week.
Well, it's become critical for us to do this because it's not just D.C. We're sending a very clear message across the country to blue cities, especially, and sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. We've been giving you warning for the last 3 months that the Constitution guarantees freedom and safety. That's our purpose for the American citizen. If you can't step it up or won't step it up, we will. And of course, we kept getting the thumb nose up, giving back to us. And then when DC had this last Sunday entourage of 100 thugs trying to take over the park downtown, and law enforcement standing down because they were ordered to do so, the president said, "That's enough. We're going to show you what we're going to do in these situations, and this is not just for DC. It could be used for the rest of the country." First of all, we're bringing in our federal law enforcement officers. They're sitting at a desk there at headquarters too oftentimes anyway, Jimmy. So it's kind of like push your desk, your chair and your desk, grab your badge, hang it around your neck, put your revolver on, and get out and start walking the streets. Second thing we did is we authorized at least 850, not more, National Guardsmen. We deployed that for the first 3 days. Huge impact. Crime began to fall. They began to become very nervous and very concerned. But here's the interesting thing: the question you raised. It's not just the criminals about what it's like for the assignment of making sure, hey, you're rounding up some bad people. It's the protesters. We're actually more concerned about the protesters than we are about the criminals. Yeah. Criminals know better. It's the protesters that just literally have no bounds and have no brains, Jimmy. Yeah. Who would go up to a cop and grab a pan and stick it right a half an inch from his face and start beating it with a spoon? I mean, I realize that's supposed to be annoying, but you want to go home and see your family. That's probably not the best way to do it. And so it really is the protesters that we're more concerned with now because, of course, they're coming from all over the country. They're being paid to go in and protest this thing. And you really don't know what they're going to do. But it's been very successful at this point. In fact, we were able to pull back some of the National Guard last night. Just wasn't necessary. We're not going to do overkill, but we're going to make sure we send the message. We did overkill for the first few days. Seemed to work great, continuing to work great, Jimmy. Let's see where this thing goes. But I got a sneaky suspicion crime is going to come down and just bottom out in D.C., and that's going to send a clear message to New York, Detroit, Chicago, the rest of them. You better get your act together or you're next.
Michael, I was listening to some news reporting of this, and they said that even the people that beat up the guy from Doge, Big Balls is what they call him, all of these people, a lot of these are 14, 15, 16-year-old boys that are just roaming the streets. First of all, where the hell are the parents in Washington, D.C.? Why are they in control of their family? And maybe they never fit to be parents, but they're committing these crimes as young guys. These aren't 40, 50-year-old criminals for the most part. These are 14, 15, 16-year-old thugs because they know that under the laws of Washington, D.C., they won't be detained. They may be detained, may be brought in, but they're going to be released immediately. So there's no consequences to their action. Do you know if there's a way that with the national, because it's federal property, this is not a state of its own, they don't have sovereignty the same way that the state of Colorado or the state of South Carolina, North Carolina would have? They just don't have that. Is there any way we can start bringing federal charges against these 14, 15-year-old kids since Muriel Bowser, the mayor, won't do it?
Already being done, Jimmy. I'm glad you brought that up. We recognize two things when we made this approach. First of all, we can make the arrest now. Remember, the guard can make the arrest. It's now been federalized. But you have the prosecutors who are under the authority of the U.S. attorney. So the U.S. attorney was replaced. Judge Janine is now the U.S. attorney for the area of Washington, D.C. And she has said that, first of all, two things. She wants to change the law nationally. So you do the crime, you pay the time, regardless of your age. Yeah. But second of all, she's saying in D.C., over which she has jurisdiction, she will no longer recognize 14 to 18 as being an age differential. You do it, you're going to get popped. And that's what we've been doing. And that's why you're seeing a big difference in D.C.
Yeah, the little shavers start to behave a little bit better whenever they find a little bit of consequence to their action. That's what they do. Michael, I know you know law enforcement all over the country, and whether it's a state agency, a local agency, a sheriff's department, you are committed with your organization, investusa.org, investusa.org, and what do? You provide safety vest for all the officers that you possibly can do. Our listeners can participate. They range from $700 to $1,000 a vest, if I recall. But we got to keep these officers safe because the Democrats and criminals, and sometimes those are the same, don't really care about the life of these officers, whether they're ICE or whatever. They like to doge them. They like to protest, throw sandwiches at them, bang pans at them. We got to keep them safe. That's what investusa.org is doing. Make the elevator pitch, sir.
Well, it's especially needed now, Jimmy, because of the fact we're using so many of them to go after all these criminals and elements of drug cartels and child sex trafficking. If they go to our website, that's INVESTUSA.org. It's charity.org. They can help participate. The key thing is this, Jimmy, is we have downplayed and so traumatized law enforcement over the last 4 years that they really just need to know that we're back here. They're still not quite sure. They're willing to do their job, but they really don't know where we stand as Americans. So if you can only give $1, that's great. What we want to do is we want to be able to tell a cop 250 million people contributed 10 cents or a nickel or a quarter, whatever it is. That's how many people have your back. And that's what makes it's going to make a difference in this. So whatever you can do, you can buy a vest, great. You can only buy $1 worth. That's fine too. Let's let them know that we've got their back. One quick thing I'd add, Jimmy, that I get a big smile on my face. We just had criminal indictments to a congressman in the northern part of the U.S. on the eastern coast. And the reason why he gave criminal indictments is he released all the names of the ICE agents that have been participating in the raids for immigration. Thinking because he was a congressman, he could tell them ahead of time and get away with it. Well, he's fixing to find out there's a different sheriff in town now, and you pay for the crime.
And the old Congress lady that attacked the ICE officers at that detention center, she's got old charges filed against her. So it's the old, we'll be clean here on this program for the most part, FAFO, F around and find out. And some of these Democrats are effing around and they're finding out that, as you said, a new sheriff is in town. And off to the pokey they go. Adios, amigo. Buenos dias. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Michael, investusa.org is your website. People can help out any way to help keep these law enforcement folks, men and women, safe on the streets. Investusa.org. Also on Instagram, a great presence there on the social media, but investusa.org. Michael, I said this last week. I had to go out of town. I got to get in touch with you this week. I've got a way to get some money for your organization. I want to get to you, so I'll let you know.
Thank you, Jimmy. God bless you. God bless America. Continue to have a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to you and I getting together sometime. We're going to have a blast.
We're going to have a blast. We're going to have a local sheriff escort us and keep us out of trouble, probably. Sheriff Steve Reams might join us to stay out of trouble.
I can arrange that.
All right, we got it. Michael Letts, God bless you, my friend. Michael Letts, I'll be in touch. Investusa.org. All right, with our technical difficulties, running a little bit late this morning, but we're back, trying to get back on track. I got my next guest up in the green room. He's enjoying the donuts as well. Let me introduce him to you. But also, let me remind you, make sure you download subscribe and like us on all the social media platforms. Not social media platforms. We're streaming on a lot of those right now. But thousands of earballs will hear this show today and throughout the rest of the week. Because of the podcast that formulates after the show. So you're getting to watch it live. You're seeing the glorious camera work that our cameras are doing on our computer. You get to see Michael Letts, Jeff Dornick, our next guest as well. But if you want to hear the audio portion only, maybe you're busy and you can't watch every move and you want to watch it later, go to all the podcast platforms that you have, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. That can be Spotify, that can be Apple Podcasts, that can be Podbean, maybe that's iHeart. Wherever you listen to podcasts, search Jimmy Lakey Unleashed, like it and subscribe it, and that really helps us out, and it also makes sure that it's available for you, and you don't have to go hunt for it every time the show airs. So daily shows, go to podcast after the live stream, and we'd love for you to subscribe there, all the podcast platforms. All right, Jeff Dornick is my guest. I want to bring him into the program. Let me, sorry, I got to hit the right button on my screen because sometimes I hit the wrong button and I will disconnect him if I'm not careful. Jeff, yes, yeah, sometimes I'm not the smartest tool in the shed is what I'm, the sharpest tool in the shed. Jeff Dornick is my guest, and he's the author, co-author of a book called Church and State, How the Left Used the Church to Conquer America, Social Injustice, Exposing the False Gospel of the Social Justice Movement. He's the CEO of a social media platform that we're working to join this week to start streaming the show on, called Pickaxe. Jeff Dornick back in the studio. Jeff, welcome in. Thanks for your patience, sir.
No, not a problem. Thanks for having me back on.
Let's dive in here. I was talking to Michael Letts, who keeps officers on the street safe with investusa.org. I have the story about ICE is trying to every bit of technology they can get their hands on in order to keep America safe, including technology that will allow AI to scan the iris of a person's eye and help identify that person, I guess. You're a tech guy. You've started the social platform Pickaxe. Talk about some of this technology that ICE is using, and also how AI could be revolutionizing, if you will, or at least empowering law enforcement in a very significant way.
Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting. So obviously, AI has been implemented on a mass scale under the Trump administration. We're seeing this within HHS. We're seeing this within the intelligence agencies. Like across the board, AI is being used to streamline, a lot of things. So ICE has actually posted on one of the government websites where they're asking for private companies to pitch them on like, hey, we'd like to implement this, but basically to be able to have a downloadable app that would go onto ICE agents' phones that would allow them to take a picture basically of your eye, of your iris, which is identifiable specifically to individual people, very similar to like how you would have a fingerprint, except it would be dealing with your eye. So instead of having to take your fingerprint and then send it in for scanning, check it against the database, they could just literally do it on your phone, and then it would basically cross check this across their database. Now, from an enforcement standpoint, I get what they're trying to do, because basically this would allow them to streamline the process of being able to identify people, see, are they actually an illegal alien? Are they not? So it will definitely help them with their enforcement. On the flip side, one of the concerns that I have is their database. Where is their data coming from? So what they actually said is that the data is actually coming from other illegal aliens that they've taken pictures of. So that's perfectly fine. Criminals in prison where they're scanning their iris. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Where you start to get into some murky water, though, is they're also going to be taking public photos off of social media, funneling that into their database. So now they're actually taking, if you've posted a picture on Instagram or Facebook, they're actually going to be taking that information, putting it in their database, to be able to compare and contrast irises that they're collecting with this app versus the irises from, let's say, your Facebook, profile. So now we start getting into, okay, now we're getting into privacy things. I'm not a criminal, so should you really have access to my iris? You start getting into some weird, murky territory with this. And I always caution everybody, from a governmental standpoint, we can't take this approach that the ends justify the means. We do have to make sure that privacy is respected. We do have to ensure that our constitutional rights are protected. So it's one of these things that I think we still need to work through before implementing this.
The voice of Jeff Dornick, he's the founder and CEO of Pickaxe. We're going to work to get our show starting to stream there this week. Pickaxe is a web-based, a desktop-based social media platform, soon to be on an app store near you. We'll update you on that as that happens. Pickaxe, P-I-C-K-A-X, Pickaxe. Jeff Dornick is the founder of that. Jeff, speaking of AI, AI is fantastic if you've learned to use it. Figuring it out, and it's amazing just watching how it seems to change almost every week, every month. But you mentioned the government may be using AI to find bad guys, but again, privacy is key, and it's good on one sense, but it can go very poorly, as you mentioned. It looks like the Food and Drug Administration is also using AI. But this one scares the heebie-jeebies out of me. Rather than doing a lot of testing on drugs when they're trying to approve pharmaceuticals, they've decided to let AI just kind of test it, and AI will try to run out the model and say, yeah, that's going to be safe. Give me your thoughts on what's happening with the FDA giving Big Pharma a hall pass.
Yeah, so this one to me is one of those instances where I am not a big fan of this implementation of AI. And again, I've said for a lot of things on a micro level, I think a lot of times AI can be a very useful tool. So on your specific situation, you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to expand this, or analyzing data, perfectly, acceptable use of artificial intelligence. I have a problem with it on the macro level, where it's taking the centralization of power. It's ultimately going to be replacing humanity as we know it, if you'd listen to guys like Elon and Bill Gates. So specifically when it comes to HHS and the FDA, what they're actually doing is they're phasing out of animal trials. And, Senator Rand Paul supported this. The FDA director, Secretary Kennedy, also are all for this. So they're eliminating animal trials, which was typically the first phase of trials when it comes to pharmaceutical drugs and vaccines. So where you'd see, okay, is there some abnormal cancer growth that's happening as a result of this drug? Is there some sort of weird reaction that we didn't predict that's happening when you combine this, basically technology with human biology in these animals or lab rats or mice or whatever it is? So they're eliminating that because of, quote unquote, animal cruelty. And then at the same time, they're phasing in AI simulated trials to fast track FDA approval for drugs. And then what they're saying is that, especially after, Operation Warp Speed, where, again, big pharma loved it, fast tracks vaccines, to FDA approval very, very quickly. What we're seeing is using AI. What they're going to be able to do is they could basically instantaneously run simulated trials for, you could say, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years. Wow. In a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. The problem that we have with this is you're not actually getting real life results. It's all based on algorithms. And as we all know, AI is only as good as its programmer, and AI is only as good as the database that it's collecting data from. Now, I don't think that, last I checked, that we actually fully understand human biology to the very nuanced degree that God does in how he created us. So the AI can only be as good as our human understanding of human biology. So it can only simulate what we actually understand about it. So there's going to be so many different things that if we don't allow for real world testing to be able to see, okay, what's going to be the ramifications of this, and we only rely on AI simulated testing, do we really know what's going to happen and whether or not this drug is actually good or bad compared to human biology?
It's kind of like, I don't know. So you kind of think right now, find your doctor now before the next generation of doctors will have passed medical school with AI. That's scary. And now we're going to get drugs approved by AI. It brings me back to Pickaxe. All of us have, most of us are on social media. And yet more and more, even though there's a benefit to this AI and this cyber world that we live in, there are some privacy concerns. There are some safety concerns. And I know that's one of the motivations that you had regarding Pickaxe, regarding that balance of privacy and security. I mean, it's have you threaded the needle with Pickaxe on some of these concerns we have?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because when Elon bought Twitter and turned it into X, everybody, was cheering him because they're like, oh, he's bringing back free speech, which is, true to a certain degree. But they also have a policy in there that states that you have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, which means that you can basically say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean they have to let anybody actually see it. And so you start thinking, okay, so why did he open it back up? Well, as we all know, a couple months ago, XAI actually purchased X. So now X is a subsidiary of the artificial intelligence company. Why? Because basically they're just collecting all of your data, funneling it into artificial intelligence in order to, basically further expand its large language model. That's why he's actually bringing back free speech, is because he wants to know your thoughts. He wants to know your opinions. They can learn about you. Whereas before, if they would have censored all the conservatives, then they would only be implementing, leftist talking points and belief systems into the AI. And so this way he can basically collect everybody's data equally and funnel it in there. So, the other aspect of a lot of this data collection obviously is advertising, which again, they're using AI for, they stalk you. They basically, they listen in on your phone calls. You talk about some product, all of a sudden you get an ad on Facebook or Amazon for, what you were just talking about on the phone. You've never looked it up before. They're definitely stalking you everywhere you go. So for us with Pickaxe, what we're doing is we have no need to collect your data at all. So we actually target ads not based upon stalking you and seeing what your search results are, what you're talking about on the phone. We're actually targeting our ads based upon the content that you're looking at. So if you're reading an article, let's hypothetically say about vaccines or health or food, we know what kind of ad to run that corresponds with that specific topic. So if you're looking at something that's dealing with health and wellness, maybe we'll run a wellness company ad there. If you're looking at maybe election fraud, maybe you'd want to see a MyPillow ad. There's different things. There's different ways of targeting without having to stalk you and collect your data. That's a major issue right now on big tech, and that's not going away. They're leaning very heavily into that. So for us, we're kind of setting ourselves apart by not stalking you. I mean, it shouldn't be that controversial, but it's what we're doing.
Yeah. Pickaxe.com. You're going to be on the mobiles, the mobile apps here real soon, working at that detail. But right now, folks can sign up. Pickaxe.com. As I said, we're working. Brewster, Chad, and I were talking last week about moving the show and make sure we're on Pickaxe here real soon. I know it interfaces well with Rumble, so we're already on Rumble. Pickaxe.com, AX. Jeff, real quick, I want to talk about your books and move to my next guest. But as you kind of watch this whole AI thing and the social media, the privacy, is the genie so far out of the bottle that we're just screwed as a culture? Or is the pendulum going to come back? Every action has equal and opposite reaction when it comes to using AI for good and privacy and all the things we mentioned. Are we going to be able to get that genie back in the bottle? Will the pendulum swing back the other way?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't think that we are going to get the genie back in the bottle governmentally. I think that because it centralizes so much power and it gives so much power to the government to have it implemented on a mass scale with AI, I don't think that that's ever leaving us from a governmental standpoint, which again, I have extreme concerns about with centralization of power and privacy and data collection and all that. I don't want, like, I think RFK Jr. said during his presidential campaign, he's like, everybody's always asking about, China collecting data and Russia. He's like, I'm more concerned about the CIA collecting our data more than China, which I think is a fair assessment. So from that standpoint, I think the genie's out of the bottle. On a person by person and culture and society, this is where we can begin to push back on this and check out from artificial intelligence, because right now everything is going to where we're going to have an AI dominated ecosystem. Elon Musk and Bill Gates have both said that within the next decade that they plan on basically being able to replace all human jobs with AI and robots, to where there's going to be no more need for human beings to be in the workforce. That's a little terrifying. So what do? We're going to have to create our own ecosystem and be on platforms and be a part of different groups and companies and organizations that are deciding to walk away and step away from artificial intelligence. That's what we're doing with Pickaxe. There's a handful of other companies that you can do that as well. And we're going to try to find different ways of kind of putting that all together to where we can have this alternative ecosystem that's human-centered as opposed to AI and technology-centered as well.
Jeff, you've got a new book out. I'll let you tell about that. According to pickaxe.com, folks can go jump on your social media platform. But the latest book you have in your quiver is?
Yeah, it's a book called Following the Leader. We're going to be releasing it here very, very soon, just putting the final touches on it. But it's basically about the cult of personality and how it's being weaponized and used against us. And I think a lot of times we think that it's just the left that are sheeple. Sorry, conservatives can very sheeple-like as well. And so we have to be very careful. You could be making the right decision, but you're doing it based on a cultist, justification for it, because you're playing follow the leader. What I want to do is I want to get you to step back, take a look at what do I believe and why do I believe it, and then follow your principles as opposed to following your favorite leader, politician, political party, group, organization, fill in the blank. So that's really what the book's about. You guys can pre-order at my website, jeffdornick.com. But it's called Following the Leader. It's really shocking when you start diving into even the intelligence agencies, how they've tested this, their involvement with a lot of the cults and how they've been applying this to the masses, especially over the last few years. So you definitely want to check out from that level of cult mentality and just be a free thinker. Figure out what you believe, why you believe it, and go from there.
JeffDornick.com. You'll see it on the screen. Also pickaxe.com. Jeff, always a pleasure. Thanks for your patience. I know we're running behind this morning, but I appreciate you. Thank you very much. JeffDornick.com. JeffDornick.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good to have you here on the show. I got another guest. I'm running behind here. We had technical difficulties to start the show. We couldn't get connected, but we got all fixed up, and we're running a little bit behind here, so I appreciate everybody's patience out there. I want to welcome you to the show. By the way, don't forget, Friday, September 5th is our charity golf event. Coming up about 3 weeks away, just less than 3 weeks away. It's at the Colorado National Golf Club, September the 5th. Join us there. If you haven't registered, get registered. Several people registered over the weekend. I think I woke up to another registration pinging in the inbox this morning as I sat down at my desk. So listen, let us know if you can make it. If you can't make it, you need to change your plans and make it to our charity golf event benefiting Rivers Promise, the charity that I began. You see it on the coffee mug. You see it on the banner behind. Help us build Legacy Christian Academy. That's our school in Rwanda. My son was born in Rwanda. I adopted him and made a promise to take care of all the kids that I couldn't adopt. Therefore, his name is River. I called it Rivers Promise. Boom, just like that. There's the thumbnail. So make sure you join us Friday, September the 5th. I told somebody over the weekend, as a matter of fact, Cesar, and he was there with his nephew. I mentioned Cesar earlier. I told him, I said, you don't have to be a good golfer. It's really a drinking party where some people hit the balls around on occasion. Some people don't get out of the cart, I don't think, all day. Anyway, riverspromise.org. Get registered Friday, September the 5th. I want to see you there at the Colorado National Golf Club. Come in. Still time to get a last-minute airfare. And come to Colorado if you're not here, all right? That's what I want you to do. All right, let me welcome in my next guest, patiently awaiting in the green room from a great organization. You might remember when I was on the terrestrial radio signal, Wanjiru Najoya. It's a great institute called the Mises Institute, nonprofit organization that exists to promote the teaching and research in the Austrian School of Economics. It's Mises, M-I-S-E-S, Mises Institute, a great organization. Please welcome Scholar in Residence, Wanjiru Najoya, waiting in the green room. Welcome back to the program. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
I apologize for the delay. We ran late in starting. Technology happens, but we're going to make sure thousands of people will hear this interview, so everybody stand by. Let's talk, first of all, about the Mises Institute. I think it's a fantastic organization. A lot of folks haven't heard about it, but talk about what the Mises Institute does and how they can find out more.
So the Mises Institute, as you said in the introduction, is basically a school of economics trying to teach sound economics. A lot of people have economics completely wrong, and that's why they're beguiled by socialism. So we basically teach that economics is about free exchange, voluntary exchange, and the right to private property. And we are trying to explain to people why government regulation of trade always makes things worse, and people are better off relying on the free market. And we just try to show that ultimately we are all better off with liberty. It's not just economic liberty, but we also teach about individual liberty, free speech, freedom of contract, freedom of conscience and belief, nations by consent, all these ideas to do with liberty. And we also promote international peace. So we are against war and everything that people, put forward as the causes of war, because we say, disputes should be resolved by negotiation and not through conflict. So that's just basically in a nutshell what we do. And we're mostly focused on education and trying to get the word out there about the benefits of liberty and of capitalism and of peace.
Mises Institute will give you their website here in just a moment. I have a question for you. As I'm watching this Mamdani race in New York City, we have another avowed communist, I think, from Ethiopia, running for mayor of Minnesota. I think Seattle's got a literally avowed communist running for high positions in their city. As you watch this, I have to ask you the question, where did we go wrong? Have we erased the history of what socialism and communism has really done to damage human life and liberty? Why are we seemingly, as modern day America, so many people willing to look past the true history of communism?
Americans are very optimistic about themselves and about the capability of the United States, and they just believe that socialism will work because it'll be Americans doing it. You just hear New Yorkers, they're so full of confidence, saying it's going to be great. The state will run the grocery stores. We're going to fix rents to make it affordable. They think they can make it work, and they don't seem bothered if you tell them this didn't work in the USSR, because they think, well, we aren't the USSR. We're great. We're going to make it work. It has always been one of the greatest selling points of socialism that people think it has never really been tried. They think, oh, maybe it went a bit wrong in the USSR because Stalin wasn't a very nice guy. We've got our great guy, Mamdani. So it's all going to be different this time. It's going to work completely beguiled. And people don't realize it's nothing to do with the personality of the socialist. It's to do with the system itself. It does not work, and it inherently leads to tyranny, because the first thing that's going to happen when socialism comes in is that people are going to resist it. The only way to make them do it is going to have to be by force. I mean, just to take one example of a socialist plan that everybody should share cars. So you won't need a car because you can just go across to your neighbor's yard and get in your neighbor's car and off you go. Well, your neighbor isn't going to be very happy with that. So the only way to make it work is going to have to be by the use of force. That's why socialism always ends in tyranny. It's nothing to do with that because Stalin happened to be a bad guy, as many people seem to think.
Let's talk about the erasing of history that's happened. You hear the failure of our higher education or university system. Those have been taken over by communists and socialists, so they're indoctrinating the kids. My son just graduated high school a year or so ago, and I'm baffled sometimes when I ask him a question about his history class, how little emphasis there was on certain parts of history. Definitely wasn't a high point of the curriculum. Is that part of our problem, is that we are not teaching history in our school system?
It's a massive problem. And one of the things that I've noticed, it's particularly bad in America, but it's everywhere in the West, is that the old historians are not taught anymore. And the reason given is that, their language wasn't very inclusive. They used words that we don't use anymore. So these are all now, I remember an example from Canada where they said any book published before, I think they said 2018, they even gave a cutoff date where they said any book published before that is not inclusive, it's not diverse, and that's got to be taken out of the library and pulped. So that's the first problem, is that the history books are all gone. Then you have the second problem where the people writing the new history with the more acceptable language are the Marxists. They have a particular way of describing history as, the Marxists see history as driven by particular rules or laws of exploitation. So they want to teach about colonialism, they want to teach about slavery, they want to teach about racial exploitation. So now they tell history in that way. You may have seen they had this whole project where they're rewriting the history of America. And they want to say America was built on slavery and the American Revolution was about slavery. And they rewrite the history books. So now that's what they're teaching. That's a huge problem. And when you try to tell people, everyone says, well, the children are being indoctrinated. But when you try to fix that, it's very difficult to fix it when all the books that they're reading are already part of the problem. It's not just the books. I noticed even if you go onto the history websites, that children are asked, museum websites that you would expect to be reliable. It's a museum, right? It's not a political platform. But when you go onto the website, the way that they tell history is exactly the same. It's being told through a Marxist lens. The people who are writing that history are self-declared Marxists. This is a huge problem. Now, many people seem to think it isn't a problem if the historian is a Marxist, as long as he, when he's telling the history, he should be objective and rely on primary sources, as they put it. Why do people think that Marxists are going to be reliable and honest? They have never been. Marxism is an ideology that has particular goals in mind. There are no Marxists who say, well, because I'm a history teacher or a history academic, I'm just going to be objective and leave my Marxism out of. Marxism is about how you see the world. It's about your worldview. It's about how you interpret the history. It doesn't matter if they're primary sources because they have to be explained and interpreted, and that's being done through a Marxist lens.
The voice of Wanjiru Njoya, scholar in residence for the Mises Institute. That's MISES. We'll give the website here in just a moment. Wanjiru, I want to come back to this indoctrination that's happening in our schools. And so he goes, well, I'm teaching my kids history, and New York City's a long ways away. I shouldn't have to worry about that. This is really not the time for us to duck our head in the ground and say this is a New York City problem. Isn't this a time that we really just need to double down and commit ourselves to learning history, committing ourselves to telling the truth about history? Because if we just say, it's New York, let them do it, that's not really helpful. We have to be more committed to understand socialism, understand Marxism, understand the lies we're being told in the classroom and in the media. It's a very important time for us to be engaged. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. And the media is a big part of this in the sense that what happens in New York or California doesn't stay in New York or California. People say this a lot. So, for example, you'll tell them about historians in the University of California system who are saying America was built in slavery. Then people say, oh, well, that's California. You expect them to be like that. They're crazy out there. But this is the thing. It's not just New York or just California because it's in the media. I'll just give you one example. The New York Times 1619 project. That was the project that said, America begun in 1619 because that's when the first slaves arrived. So that's the New York Times. And you may think, and a lot of people tell me this, they say, oh, I don't read the New York Times. I don't care what they're saying. But here's the thing. Everything that they said about history should be understood went into all the mainstream media, went into the AP style guide. So even the way that people talk, you find institutions that don't think of themselves as politicized, that say we follow the AP style guide. And that guide tells people it's not just changing the words. This is what George Orwell tried to explain. When Marxists change the words, they're not just randomly changing the words for fun. Our language evolves in a way that makes it very difficult for us to speak the truth. For example, if you start, just to give an example, if you start talking about boys and girls as they, them, and then you say, well, it's just language and it's just politeness and that's how we all talk now, it becomes impossible for you to speak the truth. How are you going to speak the truth about gender when you already adopted the language, everybody is they, them? So that's just one example to show how even small things like changing the language changes the way we understand history, changes the way we read the Constitution. This is one thing I've talked about a lot. You look back to the United States Constitution now, it looks strange because the words in there we don't use words in this way anymore. So one of the reasons that they're trying to change the way we speak is so that we look at old history books, we look at old documents, we look at old case law, and we don't understand what they're talking about because it's like they're written in a different language where there's a barrier being put between us and history. It's like they're cutting us off of history, which is also a very Marxist strategy to get everybody to ground zero and to start as if this is day one, the day that they've started rewriting history. So yes, we should all be concerned about it.
It's not just the liberals or California, New York, or the uneducated that are need to be educated in history. I am surprised how many times well-meaning conservatives, dino libertarians, will watch a show like this and say, "Man, I wish the federal government, the government ought to step in." I'm like, "Whoa! The Constitution, that's not the government's job." But we even also, as conservatives and or maybe libertarians, but we're a lot of conservatives or Republicans, sometimes we don't understand the role of government. Therefore, we surrender and say, "Well, that was a good vote they made in Congress." And I'm like, that was a horrible vote. That goes against everything our founders envisioned. But sometimes people on the right side of the aisle also don't understand history and the foundation of our government.
We have what is many people call the uni-party, where it looks as if we have two parties, but they're just agreeing with each other on everything, except maybe they're disagreeing on the extent to which they should go. So the Democrats are pushing too hard and the Republicans are saying, hold on, you're going too far, but they're basically agreeing on the same thing. One example that I give of this is the DEI, when the Democrats said, we got to have diversity, equity, inclusiveness in everything. And then the Republicans were saying, well, we need to make sure we do DEI properly. No, we don't need to make sure we do DEI properly. We need to get rid of DEI. So this is just one example how they have this idea that if you do what the Democrats are saying properly, then that's going to make it work.
I'm thinking of all the characters. The Aunt Jemima got ripped off the syrup bottle. The Native American got ripped off the Land O'Lakes margin. The only guy left on boxes of food at the grocery store are white guys like Uncle Ben and the Quaker Oats guy. But they always say, if we can just erase this part of history, if we can just do this, if we can just do this, it's all going to bring peace on earth and goodwill towards men. But it's never working out that way. Once they ban one thing, they want to ban the other.
They banned ethnic minorities from all the cereal boxes and syrup bottles, and now they've got only the white men on on all these products, and they've started complaining about that. They're saying, oh, it's showing white supremacy. Well, the reason it's showing that is because they complained that they shouldn't put ethnic minorities on it.
They whitewashed everything, and now they're complaining that everything got whitewashed. Joseph in our chat room brings up a good point, why we should care about New York and California. He said these days kids from other kids, they learn in online gaming communities. They chat with each other, and you've got kids that have been indoctrinated in New York and California, and if you're not careful as a parent, everybody's so connected that what they're teaching in New York and California is going to leak into Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi or North Dakota. It's going to get there because no one's living in an island anymore. So California and New York are important.
They're absolutely important. And there's more. They tend to dominate for two reasons. First of all, because they're aggressive about what they're saying. They by its nature, liberalism is an aggressive ideology in the sense that it isn't just saying, here are my opinions and here are my thoughts, but they're saying, here are the thoughts and opinions that we all should have. So that's the first thing that's making it dominate, is the fact that it's inherently aggressive. And the second thing that makes it tend to dominate is that it comes in language of kindness and compassion. People are always going to default to whoever's talking about kindness, whoever's talking about compassion. And these are the words they use. They say, why would you do that? That's not very kind. And so if you are, even if you aren't from, one of these liberal states, if the person there is saying this is how we show compassion, then yes, we all want to be compassionate and kind. This is why they dominate.
Yeah.
It seeps like a poison through people's thoughts and people's speech.
Yeah. So important. Such a great topic. Wanjiru Najoya is my guest, scholar in residence for the Mises Institute. If you're not familiar with Mises, they're a nonprofit organization. They promote the teaching and research of the Austrian School of Economics, individual freedom, honest history, international peace. It's in the tradition of Ludwig von Mises and Murray and Rothbard. You check out the Mises Institute, MISES. Wanjiru, if somebody goes to Mises the website, I'll let you give the website. They go to the Mises Institute. I'm sure they can follow you there, find your work there as well.
They can find my work there. I write about all sorts of topics. So if you go to the Mises website today, the article that I have up there is about the way that the Marxists took over the law schools. I think a lot of people don't realize this. So they think, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to file a lawsuit. And I'm going to assert my constitutional rights. It's really important to realize that this poison we were talking about is in the law schools as well. So if you go to the Mises page, Mises.org, that's the article I have there. And if you click on my name, it'll give you a list of all the previous articles that I've written. Or if you go straight to Mises.org and put a /Njoya, Njoya, again, it'll give you a list of all my articles, and some of them are in audio form, so you can listen to them as you're working or whatever. And that's a good way to catch up with what I've been writing about as to how all these ideas have infected many aspects of life.
There it is on the screen. That is a direct page, a direct link to her direct website, or part of the Mises Institute, Mises.org, and just type in that /Njoya and you will find it. And again, Wanjiru, we appreciate your time. Mises Institute is a great organization, and friends, again, it's so important, such an important conversation that you pay attention and realize that nobody's an island. Social media infiltrates, and the thoughts of Californians, the thoughts of New Yorkers, the thoughts of the commies in Minneapolis, all of them will spread out through society. And so we have to be as educated and smart and informed as possible. I appreciate you hopping on the program. A great conversation. Mises.org/NJOYA. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
I appreciate you coming on. I'm sorry for the delay getting you on this morning. We're running behind time this morning because of some technical difficulties. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good to have all of you here on the program. I appreciate more and more of you starting to learn the trick of sharing this show, especially the X and Rumble, etc. So if you're on Rumble, by the way, good morning to you. How are you doing? We're going to be joining Pickaxe very soon as a social media platform and the streaming the show. For all of you Instagram hipsters out there, we're not on the Instagram, not our most prolific platform, but with the technical difficulties, always have a backup. Always know where you can listen to the show, just in case, for instance, a technical issue happens. We were a little slow this morning because of a Facebook issue. Stuff happens, but always remember that if you miss a show or miss an episode, or you want to go back and hear that fantastic conversation we just had, you can do this. Subscribe on all the podcast platforms, and thousands of ear holes will hear this show by the end of the day, end of the week, and they'll hear that interview with Wanjiru Joya. They'll hear that on the podcast, and it's just look up Jimmy Lakey Unleashed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all the places, Podbean, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search my name, Jimmy Lakey Unleashed, and it's going to be a great way for you to hear the show as a backup if you miss it on one of the platforms, or you want to go back and hear an interview in your ear holes, but you don't have time to sit down and scroll and watch it on YouTube. Again, great way to listen to the show again. And I would recommend you go back and listen to that interview we just did with Wanjiru Joya, because I think it was a good conversation, something we need to have planted into our hearts and into our heads moving forward about where we stand as a society and a culture. All right, I want to remind you, Friday, September 5th is our charity golf event. It's the Colorado National Golf Club in Colorado, in Erie. There is the logo on the cup from last year. Rivers Promise, Hope for Children. If you can play, come play with us, would you? If you want to be a sponsor, you can just sponsor. I've got some people that will say, hey, like Jay Ratliff, our aviation travel guy. Jay doesn't come into the show in for the golf tournament, by the way. He's on the show. He doesn't show up, but he still sponsors it from afar, a whole sponsorship. Maybe you would like to... We have one person that sponsored a law enforcement and military veterans, a veterans foursome. So they said, hey, get 4 veterans together and let them play in the golf tournament. They paid the foursome. There's a lot of ways you can be involved, but the bottom line is everything we do that day is Rivers Promise, my charity that started many years ago as a promise to my son. We're building Legacy Christian Academy, and I'll talk about the charity more and more. And as I do, I just remind you that what we do with Rivers Promise is fantastic. Not just building a Christian school in the middle of a place of extreme poverty, but when we got to this area of Rwanda outside of the town of Kigali, about an hour out, 45 minutes to an hour 15, depends on traffic, there was a lot of let's just say idolatry happening there. There were churches, there were ministries out there, but it was nothing for the people to go. If they had an ailment or a problem, they'd go to the local witch doctor. They'd do some kind of a incantation or something. It really was a very backwards place when it comes to Christianity, it comes to faith, it comes to religion. It was a lot of occultism. There's a lot of stuff that was happening there when I got out to that area 10, 15 years ago. And I don't count myself as a missionary by a traditional sense, but I guess what we are is a mission type organization, because education, we say that goes back to the conversation we just had with Wanjiru Joya. Education, we say at our school, is the ladder that a child in poverty can use to climb from the pit of poverty. And a lot of us need an education as well. Politically, we need to use that ladder to climb out of the pit of ignorance, and don't be so stupid, fooled by talking points and the cult of personality. And you just need to be able to form a coherent thought and a cogent thought. And you do that with education when it comes to politics. I'm amazed at how many people just sound stupid talking about politics. And sometimes they are stupid, and sometimes they're just ill-informed because they haven't used education. They got talking points from a political party, Republican, Democrat, or they saw something on the television, but they never go back to the base of our government, the foundation, the Constitution, and what our government was formed to be. And so the education is so important. Well, when you play at our golf tournament, when you sponsor, whether you're sponsoring a foursome, whether you're just coming to the golf tournament, we've got a couple of big time sponsorships still available. What you are doing is giving kids education that help them climb from the pit of poverty. But we're not just educating them about reading, writing, and arithmetic. We're educating them why a little idol in your hut is not necessarily the best thing, why witch doctors and idolatry and stuff. We're steering them a different direction. That's why we call it Legacy Christian Academy. So you're helping not just the reading, writing, and arithmetic, but you're helping them find faith in Jesus, and that's what we try to teach them to do and teach them about, and then they can make that choice for themselves with the God-given free will that they have. But you're helping out more than just making kids book smart. Hopefully we're turning them on to more eternal things, and I appreciate you doing that. Education, it's the ladder that a child can use to climb from the pit of poverty, and you can help us sponsor, donate, whatever you do, riverspromise.org. See you Friday, September the 5th. I'd love to see you there. All right, what else? I got a couple of the topics I'm not going to get to today. California is threatening more gerrymandering. California says Texas, by the way, the Texas Democrats are supposed to show back up today. And they've been told that as soon as they're spotted, they will be escorted by state police right down to march their little heinies to the Capitol. And now, I'm sure a special session is going to get called again. Texas is going to get this passed one way or the other. Now, what's interesting is Governor Greg Abbott has said, hey, Gavin Newsom, you don't have as much to gerrymander as we do. You're really out of balance. We're slightly out of balance. So if you go change into the California legislature has approved that they're going to redo their district and they're going to disenfranchise 5 different districts that are currently red, and they're going to try to get 5 Republicans out of Congress. Greg Abbott says, well, we're doing 4 or 5, but if you do that, I'm going to do another 4 or 5 because we really do have some gerrymandered district here. We're going to fix it. And Gavin Newsom is going, well, I'm going to change 10. Abbott says, I'll do 4 or 5 more. And now you have Ron DeSantis in Florida saying, hey, Gavin, stop sniffing the Aquanet, okay? So get the hair gel. It's infecting your brain. If you start jacking with it, we're going to do the same thing here in Florida, and we'll do another 5 or 10 seats because we've had such an influx in the last 5 years that, we're really not district right because we've had so many new people come and we become so bright red. So Dems return to Texas today. The gerrymandering fight is going to continue, and I like it because every time these Democrats, these bad crap crazy libtards start protesting, they really expose their stupidity, like the governor of Massachusetts coming out saying, we're going to fight fire with fire. Hey, you have 35 to 40% of your population that votes for Republicans, and yet you have no congressional seats that go Republican because you gerrymander them all to be blue. And so every time these Democrats are jumping up and down about ICE or whatever, they end up proving a point, and I think it's not lost on the average person out there that's paying attention. The key is we need more people paying attention. They're siding with criminals or siding with illegals. They're siding with gerrymandering while accusing Texas of being a gerrymandering state. So watch the battle. But again, Texas is going to fight, do their thing. And Florida's going to jump into aid if they need to. And I appreciate that kind of fight. I appreciate the tenacity. I appreciate that we finally have some people that seemingly are in charge. Sometimes I know not as quick as I want, but there's a reason a president and his administration get a 4-year term. And that's because Rome was not built in a day. America was not saved in 8 months of the Trump presidency. There's a long ways to go and a short time to get there. And we've got to support the president, support the administration. And again, not the cult of personality, but if they do what's right, we commend them. If they do what's wrong, we try to correct them. And that's what we need to be doing. And hopefully by the end of 4 years, you'll judge this presidency. Think of the judging presidencies, and we're going to wrap up and do the stolen meme section of the show, but talk about Sherry Cree as well. But have you noticed that history judges people, right? History judges presidents. And, as much as I was a supporter, went to both President W. Bush's presidential inaugurations, history has judged him, I think, as a nice guy. I don't think anybody thinks he's a doofus that they try to portray him as, but his policies, the 20-year nonstop war in Iraq and Afghanistan, his policies have been judged to say, okay, that probably wasn't the best idea. And then we find out that Clapper and Brennan, the same cast of characters that flooded the Russia collusion thing, were also floating the weapons of mass destruction thing. So you realize that George W. Bush might have not been the warmonger that we thought. He actually thought he was saving America. Maybe he was on the military-industrial complex spin cycle. I don't know. But you start to realize that they faked the intelligence. It's in the news last week. They faked the intelligence about weapons of mass destruction because they were beholden wanted to get America in a war. And so history begins to tell the tale of a president like George W. Bush. And as history goes on, we're going to learn more and more about what did George W. Bush know about the fake intelligence. Did he really get duped by Clapper and Brennan? It looks like he might have, or he was complicit in it. I don't know. I think the history is going to be tell the story about George H.W. Bush. I've heard somebody say this weekend that he's probably in our recent history the most, quote, qualified on paper guy to be the president. And I don't care. I disagree with that. H.W. Bush was the head of the CIA going back to the days of the Kennedy cover-up and the Kennedy assassination. I'm not exactly sure. History will tell the story one day as to what type of person H.W. was, but I'm a little bit more skeptical about that history. Oh, he's really qualified. Why? He was a government bureaucrat for years. I mean, he worked his way up through the agencies. Is that what qualifies you? I don't know. I think Donald Trump's pretty damn qualified because he made it in the private sector, and I don't think our founders ever intended for our presidents to be deemed as qualified if they could run for dog catcher all the way to the presidency. I believe that they wanted citizen legislators, citizen politicians. And so anyway, history will tell the truth. And I think history is going to tell the truth. And you're seeing history come out about Obama. Obama has lost his sizzle, if you will. His endorsements don't go well anymore. No one seems to listen to him. Even Obama and his charisma could not get Kamala Harris across the finish line. And even Big Mike, Michelle Obama doesn't seem to have much respect for old Barry. So everybody hold on to your hats and let history be the judge. But I think we're seeing some very pivotal things get exposed about the deep state, and I'm thankful for President Trump. Jim says, listening to Facebook show feed on my Android phone has decided it's going to close caption your show for me. It has decided when you say ear hole, it's typing out the lower A body orifice. So if I say ear hole, if you're just reading, I'm saying ear hole, ears, not, yeah. So it's evidently the AI, there's AI gone bad. AI is making everybody think I'm saying booty hole, and I'm not. Scott's checking out. He's had all he can stand. Probably got to get an honest day's work in there. Says y'all have a great day. You want to have a great day when it comes to real estate? You ought to call Sherry Cree. Talk about Africa and our Legacy Christian Academy. What a fantastic time we had a couple of years ago with Sherry Cree, her husband, and a whole group of people. Producer Chad was there with us, and we went over for the ribbon cutting at Legacy Christian Academy. We'll talk about her real estate prowess and how great she is, and Sherry's going to be on the program weekly segment starting this week. We got to get that all worked out. I was out of town last week, but we'll talk about that. But I want you to understand that good people are hard to find. You know that. And Sherry's just a great person. And she's that person you can trust. She's going to go overboard and beyond the pale to try to make sure that your real estate experience with her is fantastic. And at the very end of it, when all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the signatures are on the line, guess what's going to happen? Sherry's going to ask you, what charity would you like a donation to? And she will donate a portion of her proceeds off that sale, that transaction, that purchase, whatever, her commission. She will donate it to a portion of it to the charity of your choice. Scott says Candace was there as well, him and his wife. So yes, that's right. Obnoxious Scott went to Africa. Yeah, they yeah, they tried to block him, but he snuck across the border. They tried to keep him out, but it was a great trip. Holmes, Sherry Squirrel. Sherry takes a portion of those commissions and she donates them to a charity of your choice. She also, if you're a veteran, a first responder, she'll discount her commissions right off the top and say, hey, I want this to be a great experience, because she knows that real estate is that one thing that can end up being can create generational wealth. Maybe you don't have the life insurance policy you wanted. Maybe you didn't have the savings. Maybe your 401k didn't go as far, but you want to leave something behind. Real estate's one of those things that can really do that. And Sherry can help you with that strategy. Maybe instead of selling your home, you want to talk to her. Can you keep it as a rental? What would that look like? Listen, you can brainstorm your real estate dreams, if you will, with Sherry. HomesWithSherry.com. HomesWithSherry.com. Listen, you're thinking of buying, selling, and again, maybe you're calling, put the sign in the yard tomorrow. Maybe you're ready. A lot of folks aren't ready. A lot of folks, it takes 4, 5, 6 months, a year, sometimes longer to make the decision. Okay, now's the time to sell. Now's the time that I want to do this. And so you've just got to be prepared and make the right decisions along the way. She'll help you every step of the way, whether you're planning a year out, 4 months out, 3 months out, or maybe you're just wanting to put a new sign in your yard because the person you have hasn't done a great job. I don't know. HomesWithSherry.com. Sherry Cree, if you're in the I-25 corridor across the state of Colorado, north to south, from Fort Collins down to Fort Lupton, to head on down towards Parker, Aurora, she can make sure you don't live in a Trenday, Aragua neighborhood. If you're in Boulder, Broomfield, listen, if she doesn't know an area that well, she may even give you a reference and say, I'd call this person instead. But listen, that I-25 corridor, she is a specialist in. If you're out of state, you want to meet someone like Sherry, let her give you a referral in your state. She can do that as well. HomesWithSherry.com. Go to the website, HomesWithSherry.com, and you're not just going to get the best of the best, I think, in real estate, but you're also going to get just a great person. And I think you'll thank me. You will thank me. You will thank me. You will thank me. homeswithsherry.com. All right. I miss being here Friday and Thursday. Friday and Saturday. I'm not here Saturday. I had to be out of town taking care of some business. Should be here for the next several days. I think the next day off we have planned is the day of the golf tournament, Friday, September the 5th. And so if you're going to be lonely on Friday, September 5th, because there's not a fresh show, then that's your own fault. You don't have to miss myself. You don't have to miss producer Chad. You can meet Sherry Cree in person at our golf tournament. It's Friday, September the 5th at the Colorado National Golf Club. If you haven't registered, what in the heck are you waiting for? If you have registered, thank you. The Lord is pleased with you. I think he is. I believe he is. Go check it out, okay? Would you help out with the golf tournament by being there for some individuals, whatever, if you want to sponsor for some, maybe you don't play golf, maybe you want to send a friend, maybe you want to do office bonding and take everybody there. Riverspromise.org, you'll see the pop-up for the golf tournament Friday, September the 5th. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you missed this. You know what this is. You know what I'm showing you right now. What I am showing you is the cheap prop that we have on the desk, broadcast desk. And it is a cheap prop that will allow us to, you ready? Steal memes from around the globe. We're shameless. We're unabashed. We don't care. We're just lazy. We don't want to do our own memes. Some of you are funny. And so we steal them. So let's do it. Let's do the stolen memes section of the show for the first time in 4 days. You missed it Thursday. You missed it Friday. You missed it Saturday. You missed it Sunday. Miss it no more. It's Lakey Unleashed and the stolen memes section of the show. Spin the wheel. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. First meme of the day. Oh, there we go. Cesar. That's our buddy Cesar. He was up. He's the guy that gave me the official name Jaime Lagos. There's Cesar. We were dining. Well, we did dine together. We ordered some DoorDash. Not together, separately. And we had cigars, and Cesar came up from Colorado Springs for the Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest. Cesar, if you're still watching, there you are in all of your living glory. Good to see you, Cesar, and his nephew, Jorge. They roll their R's really good. I felt very bad when I said burrito wrong. Burrito. So that he's a good R roller. I don't know what that means, but he's a good R roller. Cesar. Jaime Lagos. He says it. He makes it sound really good. When I say Jaime Lagos and when I hear Cesar happens, I want a mariachi band around me. Cultural appropriation maybe, but he says Jaime Lagos the way he does. I should wear a sombrero instead of a fedora. Yeah. Somebody's going to complain about that. Here we go, Cesar. Great to see you the other day. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Here's a sign from the Banks Wine and Spirit Store. Tequila, helping women lower their standards for years. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Here's a meme, just written words. I'm going to read it to you for those who listen to the audio portion of the show only. The fact that my entire body cracks like a glow stick whenever I move, yet refuses to actually glow, is disappointing. They make pills for that, you know. I'm just saying. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Here's a sign on the roadside. It says, I need to be a nicer person. This weather made me realize I can't go to hell. Whew, it's been hot, hasn't it? Yeah, you better be a nicer person. Accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior and avoid that destination of hell. Unless you vote for Democrats. Somebody's going to complain about that too. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from? Oh, no, I always say, don't troll the Cowboys. We troll ourselves, Dallas Cowboy fans. This is from the Babylon Bee. I'm canceling my subscription. Dallas Cowboys ask if fans can throw those little green things at them like people do at the WNBA games. I never thought we would stoop to the place where on this very show we had cowboy trolls out there named producer Chad. I say it. I've got these men who wear panties that are Philadelphia Eagles fans that always send me stuff like that. I never thought I would be betrayed on my own platform. The Lakey Unleashed shows the respect I get. Ann says that's not cool. I agree, Ann. That is not cool. That is not cool. I think we're going to throw those little green things at producer Chad. He might enjoy those. At producer school. This one time at producer school. Finish that line, producer Chad. Finish that line. No, not band camp. Producer school. Round and round the globe. Off we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we have milked the meme machine dry, which means it's time for us to depart. I really appreciate you being a part of the program. Again, don't forget the podcast platforms. Again, by the end of the day, by the end of this week, thousands of ear holes will hear this show, and it's important that you help us continue the momentum. A lot of you listening on various platforms. Good morning, Twitter. Good morning, Rumble. Good morning, X. Good morning, Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Media Equalizer page. I mean, there's a billion pages we're on right now. And then by the time it goes on to Spotify, the iHeart, that'll happen within the next half hour or so. So make sure you like us and spread the word. And that's a great way to just hear the audio portion of the show. If you missed any part of the program, I want you to go back and listen to it. We started off this morning over an hour ago with Michael Letts, law enforcement, Jeff Dornick from pickaxe.com, and also the interview we had with Wanjiru Najoya was fantastic, and I hope you'll go back and listen to that. Tomorrow on the program, we're going to answer the question, is Taylor Swift playing the Super Bowl halftime show? God, I hope not. And is Volkswagen turning into Spirit Airlines? I've got a story here about charging you a little extra money to do certain things like drive your car. All tomorrow. We got to tease that for tomorrow. Until we meet again, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Never troll the Dallas Cowboys because we troll, and the fans, we troll ourselves. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jaime Lagos, Jimmy Lakey. I'll see you tomorrow on the program, unleashed from the confines of corporate radio and right into your ear holes. I hope, my goodness, I hope the AI and the closed captioning did not translate that incorrectly that time. But I like to be in your ears. Tomorrow, riverspromise.org, sherrycree.com. I'll see you at homeswithsherry.com. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey, Jaime Lagos, the Don of the program. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. God bless America. Peace. I'm out of here.